Alrighty, traders, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Daily Roundup webinar. I want to welcome you guys and gals. Sorry, I was just wrapping up another call. Okay, so it's still chop city in the markets. I mean, it's really just it's really messy out there. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Euro New Zealand. I'm going to come back to that here in a second. I am long just a little piece, nothing too exciting. But let me talk a little bit about the euro dollar because this is a currency pair that I was long overnight. I was long nervously and rightfully so. And I did take a little bit of a loss on it, but let me talk it out with you. So, we had this going into yesterday. Let's just talk about the daily chart. Going into yesterday, we had this bull flag pattern. We were breaking out. I didn't like how we closed, but I'm like, yeah, we closed above 113. I'm gonna hang out with it. It's not the end of the world. I just wasn't like super aggressive. Why? Well, because I knew that we are up against this multi-year trend line anyway, and we've been struggling with it. I was going to get really bullish when we got above 113.50. Didn't happen. I woke up this morning, we were down like at the 112.80. It bounced back to 113, and I took it off. When it got here earlier today, I took it off and I said, that's it, I'm done with it. And the euro, by the way, was getting killed against everything too. And I'll come back to the Euro New Zealand here in a second, but it was like the cable, the euro pound was, falling, and I'm like, man, it looks ugly. So if the euro is bouncing, I'm going to go ahead and take it off. And I did. And I'm fine that I did. Small loss, not a big deal. But I'm going to tell you this much. I am not really comfortable with, like, being long the euro dollar makes sense to me for a lot of different reasons. It makes sense because, selling dollars in this environment when the stock market's going higher makes sense. As the Fed's trying to, just add a lot of liquidity, and as long as the stock market continues to move higher, then I think the dollar will, continue to be weak. But I'm not confident with the euro dollar until we get back above this 113.50, because that means it puts us back over the trend line. All right, we have a lot of Eurogroup meetings that are going on between now and the next couple of weeks that could really move the needle for the euro. So that's something that you have to be aware of as we move forward for the next couple of weeks. So I still like the euro. I just wasn't comfortable with it. Basically what I was saying, just wasn't comfortable with it at current levels. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the pound. So the pound squeezed up to the 618 retracement. It looks like it's going to break out. However, if we close back below 112.40 or 125.40, then you got to be a little careful with any pound longs that you have. The Aussie dollar still struggling as we're approaching the 70-cent level. I'm not bearish, but I'm a little worried about being bullish. There's a lot of saber rattling right now with China from the US. So, you got to be a little careful with the Aussie as a result. Kiwi continues to struggle up here at this big resistance, but look, it's also up against big resistance, and this is a multi-year trend line. So we're basically there right now. And that is that's a risk for the Kiwi if it doesn't break out. So it's really got to show us a breakout soon. If it doesn't, then we're going to have a little bit of a problem. The dollar Canadian, sorry, I'll come back to that. Dollar Canadian, I was long this morning, and I was long in the 65 level, somewhere around there. If you were in the chat room, I was long down here on this little break. I sold it as it reached to 136. We are still in this, what I consider a triangle pattern. Okay. We're still in this triangle pattern. So obviously this trend line's huge. So it's a break above here, I get bullish. I break below here, I get, bearish. And I'm trying to play it on the long side off of these levels, but I'm not. I know that as we come up towards resistance, I've got to be real careful with it, and that's why I took it off the table. And stocks are rallying too. So I'm like, with stocks rallying, I expected the Canadian would have firmed up, which it did. The Canadian firmed up. Another thing that I'll mention regarding the Canadian, Citibank, their positioning tracker this week came out this morning or yesterday afternoon. Anyway, it shows that from their client positioning standpoint, they're very short the Canadian dollar. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Canadian can't go down. When I say short the Canadian dollar, it would be the equivalent of long dollar Canadians. I'm not saying that it can't go down, the Canadian can't go down and the dollar Canadian go up, but you have to be a little cognizant and aware that we have a big bank that says, hey, their positioning shows pretty, people are pretty bearish. Okay. One other thing I wanted to go over real quick, because I had it on my screen, so I want to talk about it because I happen to be long just a little bit. The Euro New Zealand, we pushed through the lows. This is a key level support I was watching. And if you have ForexAnalytix, you saw this chart being posted the last couple of days. We pushed below the lows and now we're back above the lows. So the risk is that we get a false breakdown. I've got my stops below the lows and it's not a very aggressive position. But if we do get a false breakdown, I wouldn't mind hanging on to it. I love trading false breakouts and breakdowns. All right. So this is something that I think we need to, kind of keep an eye on, especially if stocks turn south. We start to see a rally here. We might see a more significant rally in the Euro New Zealand than just a false breakdown. It could false breakdowns usually leads to breakouts. So if we get a false breakdown here and we move up, like by the end of the day we're trading at 172.50, which is entirely possible. It's about middle of this range. We could trade back up towards 174 pretty quickly after that. So that's something that I'm paying attention to, knowing that the Kiwi is so close to resistance. One last thing, and I want to mention this for those of you that are looking at the active patterns in play. There's nothing. Look, this is a really choppy environment. I've talked to one of my friends that. He just moved from Chicago, actually, but he's a huge trader for a firm. He's like, man, this last couple of weeks have been nasty. The guys from my office are like, man, it's hard to read this market. And so if you just take into account that we don't have any active patterns in play, that's because this market environment is very challenging. We're consolidating right now. We're consolidating right now in a lot of ranges for the major currencies. I'll be the first one to tell you that doesn't last too long and it doesn't last forever. So don't be discouraged if you're sitting here going, man, I'm just, I'm so frustrated that there's nothing moving right now. They will, and it will happen. All right. So don't get super discouraged with the FX market. But take a cue from ForexAnalytix and say, oh, they don't even have any active patterns in play. That in itself should tell you things are really choppy, because when things are happening, and anybody that's been a long-term client of ours, they know that this pattern in play page can be filled up completely. So right now it's just it's hard to read. It is hard to read, but we will get clarity, guys. We will, and just understand that about the markets. Okay. Nissimon asked really quick about gold and silver. Look, gold and silver still rallying. No reason to suggest otherwise. Just well, first of all, silver is right up against resistance here. I still think it's going to break out and test this 19 and a quarter, which is massive resistance. That breaks and silver is gone. In my opinion, silver is going to be, trading in the mid-20s. Gold, new highs once again. Don't stand in the way, right? Maybe it might be signaling a little bit of risk off too. I mean, but look at gold. I mean, it just, you know, new highs once again, had a little bit of a pullback and right back up. I wouldn't be short. Dollar Mexican peso, Nissim asked, dollar Mexican peso. This is one of those that I'm watching the bear flag, or what looks like could be a bear flag, but I won't ignore if we start breaking higher. And you know, if we get back above 23, I'm going to start thinking that the dollar Mexican peso is ready to take off, and we might be ready for some risk aversion if that happens. It hasn't happened yet. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. All right, Jason said thoughts on the pound New Zealand. I think last time I looked, which was earlier, we were right up against this trend line. Yeah, I mean, this would be another example regarding New Zealand, right? In the event we get a breakout above this trend line, that would be pretty bullish, because then you'd have a false breakdown reversal, an outside day candle, because that's an outside day. Out here, let me move that. That's an outside day. That would be it'd be a bullish reversal day for the pound New Zealand. So, is it possible? Yeah. What I would be more excited about is if it broke that trend line higher, then I would be all about trying to buy the pound New Zealand dips. Okay. All right. And Ricky said short-term dollar Mexican peso 4-hour bull flag, and then I'm going to go. I'm going to let you guys go. Dollar Mexican peso 4-hour chart, bull flag pattern. Maybe you're talking about this. Maybe an hourly. That looks doable. Yeah. An hourly is probably better, easier to see it. So yeah, I mean, you know, we start breaking through this. I know it's a trend. This trend line isn't a like trend line, not something I was really drawing specifically for. I was drawing it more for the extension of that flag. But yeah, we break above 2270, and you know, that should put us pretty close to 23, right? Yeah, pretty close to 23. So anyway, and equities are looking a little rocky right now. So you know, maybe we get a turnaround Tuesday today. Maybe. All right, guys. I'm going to let you go. Remember, if you guys are listening to this after the fact, that means you're not a ForexAnalytix subscriber. So make sure you try us out. It's $1 for 10 days. For the rest of you guys and gals, thank you so much for your continued support. And I love chatting with you in the chat room. So I'll see you in a little bit. You guys all have a great one. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.